Some years ago, I watched a TV documentary about a pride of lions. I can't be sure, but in my head, the film was narrated by Sir David Attenborough. During the film, one of the older lionesses sustained an injury during a hunt. The film followed her as she slowly succumbed to that injury. In the end, she took herself away from the pride before finally lying down to die. Even before she'd collapsed, the scavengers had gathered the vultures, the hyenas, and the jackals. They were closing in even before she took her last breath, and even before the light of life was extinguished in her eyes, they greedily began to tear her apart. That's the circle of life. Mother Nature at her most brutal, the passing of one noble creature, ensuring survival for dozens of others. On the plains of Africa, where food is scarce and every day is a fight for survival, it's horrific yet necessary. In the field of demolition and construction, however, the picking over the bones of the about to die or the newly deceased feels even more brutal and inhuman. When word hits the streets that a company might be in trouble, the scavengers begin to circle, tapping up the best employees with offers of work and a more stable future. What little hope the alien company had of turning things around quickly vanish as the workers that could have fueled a recovery leave. While abandoning the sinking ship before it slips below the surface might seem the sensible thing to do, it often comes with mixed feelings. Workers want to protect their families and their livelihoods, but when their former company dies, it will take a piece of them with it. As life ebbs out of the failing company, the scavengers close in further, sweeping up any remaining staff and eyeing equipment fleets with covetous glee. And then there is the most unpleasant spectacle of all, swooping like vultures onto the failed or failing company's client list, their sharp beaks pecking away at the juiciest morsels. They speak with practiced concern and choreographed empathy about how they're there to help the clients impacted by the sudden demise of their preferred supplier. At the same time, they're wringing their hands and licking their lips with gleeful anticipation that they might finally get to complete a project for which they were never chosen. This is all still the circle of life, of course. The demise of one company nourishing many others with experienced workers and incomplete projects. On the Serengeti, that circle of life is brutal yet vital. In the arena of demolition and construction, it seems even more brutal as the scavengers seem to take pleasure in the picking apart of a once noble beast. There's an unspoken bond among demolition contractors the world over. They're a brotherhood. Yet when one of their number suffers a company collapse, they often find themselves cast out. Where once they had the respect and support of their peers, they now have nothing. The phone calls and the invitations to industry events dry up. They're abandoned and alone. There's another difference between us in the demolition and construction industry and the animal kingdom. When the vultures and the hyenas have eaten their fill, they will leave the carcass. It may still be picked over by insects and bacteria that will eventually leave the fallen animal's skeleton to be bleached by the sun. In demolition and construction, however, our hunger is seemingly never satiated. Even after we've snatched up employees, contracts, and even equipment, we continue to desecrate the corpse of the fallen company. The rumour mill will be alive with retrospective insight. I saw it coming. The writing was on the wall for months, and the directors have probably squirreled away all the money to fund their lavish lifestyles. Should any of those directors then have the temerity to return under a new company name, they'll be greeted with quiet whispers of, "It's too soon," or "Here we go again." No thought will be given to the bravery and determination it takes to dust yourself off and start again after a company is folded under your control. Instead, that previous failure is all too often used as a stick with which to beat those attempting to bounce back from adversity. Before we gather to pick over the bones of the fallen, it's worth remembering what their demise actually means. In that pride of lions, the fundamental dynamics of the community were undermined and the pride became less effective. Those that relied upon the old lioness for their very survival found themselves abandoned and bereft. Those working for a collapsed demolition or construction company feel the same. They need empathy and they deserve support. The last thing they need right now are vultures circling overhead, eyeing them as the next meal.